Hello again, everybody. Thanks for watching another episode of Thoughts from the Crawlspace today. Today, we're taking a little bit of a twist. Homeowners, we're not talking about you specifically today. We are talking sports. One thing we love around here is sports, specifically basketball, high school basketball. Today, we have Chandler Prible with us. He is the head coach at Westview High School. He's been here for two years now since moving up from southern Indiana. They know how to play a little bit down there, but north is where it's really at in Indiana, right? So Chandler's here today. We're going to be talking about just a variety of topics. So Chandler, thanks for dropping in and
thank you.
Giving us some of your insight into the team. Why don't you tell everybody kind of what got you into coaching? Coaching is a job that you can have a great impact on at the high school level. You're making about 10 cents an hour if you calculate it out throughout the year, but there's a draw to it. And what kind of got you interested in that? Where'd you start playing and so forth?
Yeah, so my dad has been coaching since I was as little as I can remember. He coached football at Southern Wells. He also coached and still does coach basketball at Bluffton, where I went to school and I graduated from. And one of my assistants, Colin Barker, his dad was the head coach at Bluffton all while I was growing up. So we were always at the gym together, hanging out. Like that's where my friends were at. That's where I got to see all my role models, whether it was the players or the coaching staff. And I got to always see that those were the guys that had great relationships with players. It was a program that really cared about. Really cared obviously about winning because everybody wants to win, but really cared about like what type of person you were building as a coach. And that's the influence that I wanted to have. I wanted a career that I felt like had a big purpose to it. And so that's kind of what got me into coaching.
Yeah, that's cool. I know coaching now it's a year-round job, but at the very least, your coaching staff is together 5-6 months a year. So you really develop those relationships.
Yes.
And it's a bonding, and that you had a great experience with it. So that led you into wanting to do it on your own.
Yeah, and I was able to see, my dad is very strict and very disciplined. We if he asked us to do something, we better go do it the first time. If it was around the house, if it was at practice, wherever it was at. But what I thought was interesting is, whether if it was him disciplining me at home, minutes later, I still would be like, "Hey, Dad, you want to go play catch? You want to go do this?" Like you could have both. You could be somebody who is strict and you would demand a lot, but also you could care enough about the people that you are doing that to, that they feel that and still want to be around you. And I was able to see that from my dad at home, and also able to see that from the coaching staff whenever I was a player and just a kid just watching practices. So that's kind of what I hope to be, is somebody that when Wiley Minix gets married in 5 years, that he hopes that he calls me and wants me to go be at something like that. And I'm excited to keep fostering those relationships and be able to still be invested in his life and maybe help him through some times later on as well.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think from just watching your kind of your style on the sideline, I know inside you're probably tied up in knots, but you keep it cool. You're not screaming and yelling at players. You're not embarrassing them in front of the crowd. You're not demeaning them. I can't think of a player in history that's out there intentionally trying to make mistakes.
Yeah.
You weed those guys out in tryouts, but you just do a great job of getting your point across without being demonstrative. And I think that leads to good relationships.
Yeah. I didn't really have this whenever I was a player. Like I didn't have issues with a coach being that way, like with a negative reaction every time I messed up. But I hear that from a lot of players or people that have played where, they say, every time I did this, I lost confidence in whatever because, coach would, grab at his head or would be screaming or whatever. And also I'm not really a yeller anyways. I'm more of a, we'll have punishments for stuff to keep them accountable, but I'm not a scream in your face type of person. I don't really, that's not my style.
Yeah. Well, I think most players appreciate that.
I also think that it's hard for me to think if I'm so worried about being emotional and overreacting to every single thing, whether it's yelling at an official or yelling at one of my players. How am I supposed to think 3, 4, 5 moves ahead? And really, it's a chess match between me and who we're playing against, what that coach is going to do next. So I need to make sure that I am thinking that far ahead. So I try to not get wrapped up into whatever little thing happens. I got to move on pretty quickly.
Yeah, and I think the players feed off of that. And I think what we've seen, we've won 2 tight sectionals in a row. And that sectional championship game on your home floor can sometimes be pretty pressure filled. Especially if you're the favorite,
yeah,
and it gets close or whatever. But we've played some of our best basketball of the year in the pressure situations.
Yeah, I think it helps too that we have a great fan base, and a lot of games are for our opponents. They love to come in and try to beat us. So that puts a little added pressure on us each time we go out to perform. And it's not just that sectional championship. I mean, you look a week before we won the sectional this last year, and we played Concord at home, who's ranked in 4A pretty high. That was a pretty loud and rowdy environment, and we ended up winning it on kind of a last-second shot. But those types of games, which we are fortunate enough to have because we have such a tough schedule, we see that quite a bit. I think that gives us that edge when it comes to the tournament.
Yeah, definitely. Speaking of schedule, there's some new teams on it this year.
Yep.
I think Westview, longtime fans can almost memorize the schedule from year to year and so forth. So what are some new teams we've got this year?
Well, our schedule has gotten harder, I think. So we dropped Elkhart Christian, and we picked up Blackhawk Christian. So that's, they have a big kid on their team who is, maybe an Indiana All-Star. So he's really good, 6'9" or 6'10", athletic, can shoot it, can kind of do everything. And I know they just got a couple of transfers from a couple other Fort Wayne schools too.
Of course they did.
They'll be very soled.
And they're up to 3A now, aren't they? Based on the points, because they've won several state championships and regionals and so forth.
Yeah. So then Plymouth dropped us, and we picked up Leo, who I don't really know anything about, but pretty consistently they've been a very solid program that has a lot of talent. Yeah,
they were in the state final just a few years ago, I believe.
Yeah. They got beat by Silver Creek in 3 years ago, maybe 4 years ago.
Yeah, Silver Creek was loaded that year.
Yeah.
So, well, that's kind of exciting. I think those are always the teams that you test yourself against to see how good you can really be.
Yeah.
Sometimes some of the conference teams or the smaller school maybe don't give you the challenge that you need to get better.
Yeah.
It feels good to beat somebody by 30, but maybe you're not getting any better because of it.
Yeah, each game I think gives you a different challenge because, there's weeks where we play maybe a Friday and a Saturday. And when you play back-to-back, that gives you a different challenge. And in the sectional, you have to win on a Friday and a Saturday if you want to win the sectional. When you play against somebody who's maybe not as good, like you still have to, me as a coach, it's a challenge. I've got to get 17 and 18-year-olds to show up and not just think, oh, we're going to win just because we're supposed to win.
Right.
So that's a challenge for me and for our team to show up and every single day they have to be able to compete as hard as they possibly can. Yeah. And finding that consistency in anything is really hard. But I think every type of game and team that we play is a different challenge, which is good for us.
Yeah. Talk a little more generally. What's your coaching style? And obviously, it depends on what players you have.
Yeah.
Anybody would love to have a 6'9" All-Star on their team, but those don't come around Westview too often.
Yeah.
What's your preferred style of play? What do you emphasize with the guys? What you try to do on both ends of the court?
I mean, I want to on offense. I want to be highly efficient, and on defense, I want to make sure that we need to make everything difficult for the other team. So defensively, I want to make sure that they only get one shot if they get a shot. We need to block out really well. I also want it to be a fast-paced game. I think teams, whether they score or miss, either one, but when teams score, they're going to high five. They're going to be pointing at the guy that passed it to them, and they're distracted for the first couple seconds while they're getting back on defense. I want to be a team that pushes that tempo on a make or miss and really puts a lot of pressure on the defense whenever we're just transitioning. Doesn't mean we have to shoot it quick. So that's a tough challenge to get guys to understand that. They think, oh, we're playing fast. That means we just shoot a bunch of threes.
Run and gun.
So that is not what we want. And there's times where you'll see in games where it does slow down a little bit. But I want the ball to get into the paint. So ideally, everybody wants to shoot a layup, but that's not always the case. So offensively, if it goes in the paint, almost every shooting drill you do from the perimeter, the guy is passing it from under the basket. So if you can get the ball down to that area, now your percentage goes up tremendously just because you're shooting a shot that's in rhythm. And that's a big thing. I think rhythm and flow are a big thing in basketball. There's times where we may have our best player sitting on the bench, and if our team's in a rhythm, I'm not putting him back in. We're going to keep flowing until I feel like that momentum swings a little bit, and then we'll make a change. But I kind of like to ride out that momentum.
So the season's starting in a few weeks, or at least practice starting in a few weeks. What do you think about the group we got coming back? We're coming off back-to-back sectionals. Westview's never won 3 in a row.
Thanks for that.
So that's an opportunity to do that this year.
Yeah.
No pressure, of course. But talk about some of the guys. What you've seen during the summer. The summer, I think, always kind of gives a little bit of an indication of what's coming.
Yeah. No, I do like the no pressure comment there, because every year you can find a reason to find something that adds pressure if you look externally like that. So with me, I have to just kind of evaluate our team and figure out what we can do to be better, and just keep it at that alone. Because if you look at like that, or last year it's like, oh well, we had 2 kids transfer in, so we gotta we have to win the sectional. Like, you can always put something on it, or the year before that we won the sectional but lost in the regional, so this year we have to win the regional. Like, there's always something like that you can say to kind of add pressure to it. And
it's you lost what? 5 seniors? How many seniors did you have last year? 5 seniors. So really, when you have a team like that that's lost that much, in a sense, the pressure's off a little bit. The expectations externally might be down a little bit.
Yeah, and that's another thing as well. I don't know. I think that's all interesting, and I try to stay out of all that and just I think we're going to be a great group. I think it's a group that has a lot of fun playing together already. Our summer was exciting. I know it was just a summer, but it was fun the way that they played. They got every loose ball, and it felt like that. I mean, every time there was a chance, we came up with it. They blocked out incredibly well. I scheduled on purpose, like every big school and talented program around, and we specifically only went and asked those types of teams. And we still went 10-3 in our summer. So we competed against really good teams, physical teams, and played really well. So I think that the depth we had last year when we were playing 9 guys, I think that really is going to help us going into this year.
Awesome. You mentioned playing 9 guys. We've also talked off camera about the challenges of getting enough players really at all levels to play consistently, whether it's 5th grade or 11th grade. So talk about those challenges a little bit. What can parents do? What can the community do to kind of encourage kids to play basketball? I mean, there's a lot more things to distract kids these days, I think, than when I played. Certainly, that was all there was for fun. Yeah, was basketball or work, and so they got more these days. What can you do to encourage them to get out there and play?
Yeah, I agree. There's a lot more that you can go do. But I think part of the problem too is as parents, we think that there has to be a coach around for our kid to get better. And that's not true at all. I know whenever I was done with my basketball practices or workouts or whatever, and I was going to play for fun, sometimes we would lower the rim to 7 feet and we would play dunk ball and just had fun. So that was some of the best basketball we played. And I don't think that's a problem. Like, it is a game. You're still learning skills. It's a game that you're supposed to have fun playing. Yeah. And I think that people feel like they have to pay somebody to go do an individual workout for their kid to get better, and that is not true. Just get a group of friends together and go play. Go outside and you can shoot by yourself and do, like, it can be fun to just go. You need to have fun with it, because once you get up to the high school level, it becomes a little more serious. And if you don't have that underlying joy in playing, you're going to lose out on that, and you're going to end up getting like feeling like it's a job, and you don't want to feel like it. I mean, once it feels like a job, I'll stop doing it. I still just have fun like I'm a kid
Right.
out there sometimes. So
Yeah.
I think that's a big part of it. Yeah, I don't know. I think that our high school program, we try to do things that are just fun for the kids. A couple years ago, we went to a Purdue practice. We took the whole team down to Purdue, and Coach Painter came over because it was a shoot around, so it was a little bit more light on their end, and his assistants kind of ran it. He came over and explained everything that they were doing. He talked to our players like the whole time. I was not expecting that much of a welcoming experience, and it was awesome. We got to sit right there on the sideline in all the fancy media chairs, and it was really cool. Last year we went and watched Grace play, who was undefeated and ranked #1. It was their alumni weekend, so it was a packed house. It was really cool. So we try to do things like that are fun, and yes, it's basketball related, but it's not them being coached. We're kind of just hanging out and building a relationship, and I think that's really important for our guys to come together that way.
I think I've always wondered, the trend has been to go toward more individual sports, I think. Tennis, golf, and especially in Indiana in the spring. You're going to be doing that in a heavy coat.
Yeah, yeah.
So why not play in front of 2,000 fans? I mean, we have the best fan base in the area. I don't think in our conference, certainly.
Yeah.
That's not even in question. So get out there, bond with teammates. I mean, I like what you said about enjoying the game, having fun. Yeah, you go to practice for 5 months, you could potentially get a little worn down, a little tired of the game, unless you have that built-in joy.
Yeah.
So,
and the other side of it too is just expectations. Like, why do you want as a parent, why do you want your kid to play sports? Is it just so they get a college scholarship, or just so they can be the leading scorer? Like, is that really why we want our kids to play sports? Like, or maybe because they can learn to fill a role, like what they will do when they become an adult at a job and they're an employee, and to do that role incredibly well. Like, we need every employee at every job to feel like their job matters, and
only one guy can be the boss.
Yeah,
so to speak.
So I think that if your kid plays 5 minutes a game, and when they go in there, they screen well, they block out, they do that stuff or they dive on the floor. That's such a big thing in a game. It doesn't matter if they scored 0 points. Like, they went in there, they represented themselves, their school, their family well because they worked as hard as they could. That stuff like that gets me excited to talk about. Now the kid that, makes a shot and has to throw up some sign with his hand and beat his chest, like I mean, that doesn't really prove anything. Like, sure, he made a shot, good for him, but what type of person is that kid? We don't really know just from scoring, right? Everybody wants to do that, and that's I don't know, it's just a little different. I think that intangible stuff means a little bit more.
Yeah, high school sports just have an amazing way of maybe helping a kid develop discipline, toughness. I can still think of lessons when I was on the team in high school. One was just being on time.
Yeah.
The rule we had is if you were late to practice, I'm not even sure if we got one. If it was the second time, you're off the team.
Yeah.
Well, it meant everything to be there. There's no way you're going to be late. So that's just kind of carried on into adulthood.
Yeah.
So being on time, showing up when you don't feel good, doing your best even when you're not don't have immediate gratification.
Yeah.
So those are just, we're getting a little more too philosophical here, but I think those are all awesome reasons to get your kid involved in a sport like basketball and encourage them. I like what you said about some of the best Westview teams we ever had were teams that played 9 or 10 guys. Well, obviously, you got 4 or 5 that aren't starting.
Yeah.
But they're a valuable contributor, and that's, down the road when you're a dad, those lessons of sacrifice and effort and toughness really go a long way. So I'm going to jump back just a little bit. Bluffton, you played there. So where'd you meet your wife, and how'd that all come about?
So my brother was playing college basketball at Indiana Wesleyan. So him and I were always doing, like, I was coaching at Bluffton, so I would let him in the gym. We would lift and go through workouts together and stuff like that. during the summer. And there was a girl that just graduated from Bluffton that was training with us. So I just went up to watch one of her college games at Indiana Tech, which is where my wife went, and we met there at the game.
Okay.
So she was at Indiana Tech at the time.
Yeah, so a basketball family.
Yeah, happened to meet at a basketball game. So it's
Well, that's awesome. We really have appreciated you guys' contributions to Westview, to the community, to the neighborhood, and we really really appreciate how you guys mentor young men and support them. So
thank you.
Anything else you want to add as far as going into this season? Anything to look for? Encouragement for fans to come out in droves? I mean, there's nothing better to do on a Friday night in Indiana in December, unless you got to do last minute Christmas shopping or something. But to just come out and support us.
Yeah. No, it's going to be a group that's going to be fun to watch. I feel like our community understands those intangible things we talked about on the floor. There's nothing better than in a close game when there's a loose ball and one of our guys beats our opponent diving on the floor and we come up with a big play all because of our effort. Or it's like last year when Wade Springer takes a charge, like that, the crowd just went nuts. We have a team full of guys that want to do things like that. So it's going to be a group that's really fun. And I think we'll have a pretty solid season. Yeah, awesome. Well, thanks for coming in today. Yeah, we're looking forward to it. I always say basketball is what gets you through winter in Indiana. If you follow the team, by the time you get to sectional, it's almost spring. Yeah. So awesome. Thanks for watching today, guys. Please share this video, this podcast, and tell everybody you know about it. And most importantly, come out and watch the games this season.